Okay, can everyone hear me?
Good morning, everyone.
So Carrie and I are here to give you all an outline of this year's budget. If you can go to the next slide. Give her 1 second. She gave me about 5 minutes, so.
Yes, thank you very much, Will. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We'll go to the next slide when we're ready. So what we're going to go through are this year's expenses and this year's revenue for the 2022-2023 church year, and go through that budget. And Carrie's going to be able to answer any questions that people have, and we'll look at the major items and the major changes. Most things are pretty similar. You can go to the next slide. So why we're here, or one of the big reasons why we're here, is in the heart and soul of the congregation is all the people that come here, and then the staff that make all of this possible. We just can't say enough about the staff, and it's a big piece of our budget, so it's great to call them out. The two positions here that are the same as last year, it's just different people, is the music accompanist with Jacob, and then Ben Goff as the new tech coordinator. So those are new from a couple of years ago, but to make this all work and all the technology, we got to have them, and they make this hybrid possible. Go to the next slide. So yeah, so if people, there are paper copies of the budget and an outline, and those have also been sent out. So this looks almost identical to the last budget. The minister's package is flat, except for a little bit more in benefits that are just health insurance changes, I assume, and little adjustments there. So there's no budgeted raise in for this year. And the subtotal of those expenses for all of the salaries and benefits is $179.54, which is $1,750 over where it was last year. So very, very, very close, but a little bit up because of those benefit expenses. Yeah, Rosemary. So thank you, and I'll say that so people can hear, is the contractual services is up this year. We put that down last year because we weren't in the building as much, but this year it has to go back up to what we're actually going to be paying. So let's budget what we actually are going to pay. Are there any questions on this? Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Other expenses. Green, the green colored font are increases from the previous year's budget. The red colored font is decreases. These are mostly pretty small tweaks. I'm going to highlight a couple. Utilities. If anyone's gotten an oil bill or an electric bill, this building gets them too. So that is an increase of about $2,700 year over year, which is a major change. That's been very stable over the last several years, and this is a big bump. So that is a big piece of the expense change. The services and improvement and maintenance are helping offset some of that. You can see those numbers are down. It's about $1,400 in those two areas that are making up for part of that utilities expense. And the other expenses here, the congregational activities expenses, some of those are just offsets of something on some of the revenue side, like the Deacons Fund, we have to mark that in the expense and in the revenue side. And fundraising is down a little bit this year as well, just by a tweak. So only $165, but that's very similar. And then the Hersey food programs is down from 3,000 to 1,000. Most of the others are very minor tweaks. So any questions on other expenses? And if there's anything coming in from the Zoom room, let me know. Mark, yeah. The Deacons Fund covers
the Deacons Fund is an endowment that is at the discretion of council. So they can, it's often that some of that money is used for membership fellowship expenses, you know, other thing, but it's at the discretion of council. And the reason that's gone up is because we haven't been spending it. So I want to show that it is available for us. Yes, exactly. Whatever we spend, we actually, yeah, that's one of those that has Deacons Fund. If we have what, $2,800 or whatever. If we spend it, we get reimbursed. If we don't spend it, we are not reimbursed. From the endowments, yes. Yeah, the endowments will pay us if we spend the money up to that budget amount.
and things like the fundraising expenses are, when you do the raffle, you actually have to pay that out. So you have to balance it on both sides, on the revenue and expenses. A good question, Mark. Other questions? Okay, let's go to the next slide. So fundraising income, there's a couple of highlights here. The auction is the same. Baskets and wreaths is up a little bit just based on what we've been able to do the last few years. The raffle is down. So when we first did the raffle, we thought we could get a little bit more the last couple of years. That hasn't quite panned out. So we're not going to budget that much revenue this year. So we put that down a little bit. And other fundraisers are down a little bit, but grocery cards is up. Rosemary said we can get more grocery cards. So encourage everyone, use the grocery cards and reuse your plastic cards so we're not wasting a bunch of plastic. Any questions on fundraising? It is a huge part of the budget. It is, aside from pledge, it is really where we balance out the rest of the budget.
And if you do participate in the Ampion project, we will get $200 for each household that signs up. And that is not included in our budget. So the more people we can get to do that, the better our income will be.
We don't necessarily budget it yet until we can show that that's going to be a full-time thing. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, can somebody update us on the status of the little school that's using the church? And I assume they're paying rental as well?
They are, but they will not be coming back for the next school year.
Okay, next slide is endowment income. So all of the endowments, that is up this year on UUSB funds. So that is really dependent on how markets perform and what we've spent and what we haven't spent in the endowment. So that's up a little bit, $6,200, which is a great increase. The Hersey Trust, and there was some carryover from in last year's budget from the Hersey Trust, that is back down to a more standard amount at $9,000. And then outside truss is up a little bit. So overall, endowment income, it has increased by about 6,000 year over year, which is very good when endowments are performing well. That brings us more here into the church. Any questions on endowments? And if people have questions on endowments, you can write to the council, and there's write-ups and there's information in bylaws. There's a lot of information on all the different endowments.
Oh, looks like Lori has a question.
Jean Curran has a question about Ampion. Jean, can you type it in so I can read it? Might be a long question, I don't know. She says, thanks. Is Ampion going to use our participation in its advertising for other folks? Do we know that?
I had an email from Ampion, and they were advertising the Penobscot Theater project, but ours was not included. I think it's because we are more directed towards our church members and not the general public. That's just my surmise.
So maybe we can see and pursue that, because I think anything we can get a name out is good. All right, let's go to the next slide. So the big line here is pledge. 125,808 is what is budgeted. We are a little bit below that. We're so close, about 2,800 to go, with right around 11 pledge units outstanding. And when we total up all the different areas of revenue, we're at 244, 522. And then when you total up all the areas of expenses, 244, 522. So to make this budget fully balanced, we need to get that those last 11 pledge units and close that last little bit of a gap. I don't know, Carrie, if you have any other comments on that.
No, Amy, was this from this morning? I think you sent one, and is it still 11 people that were shy currently?
Right around.
Yep.
Plus or minus one or two. It's pretty close. And one thing I haven't mentioned is rental income is flat year over year. So people really are wanting to get out a lot more, so let's use our space. And I think that's, I missed expenses. In the admin expenses, the office expense is back up. That's one thing I didn't mention. And that's really, we're back in the building using paper, using things, so that expense is up, and just with regular inflation. So any questions? Yes, Lori. Oh, thank you for mentioning that. We are at 71%, which is 1% higher year over year, at 10,281. I probably just didn't see that on the slide, but we are up 1% this year, but it is not at full.
Do we have a slide about capital, the capital funding?
Not in detail, no.
Do the 11 outstanding pledge units are the new members included in that pledge total? They are included. So the 11 that are outstanding are 11 that are just currently pledging, but haven't gotten on the stick yet. Okay, thank you.
So Reverend Drew thinks that it's important to kind of talk a little bit about the capital funds and how they work into this. I'm not super, Rosemary.
Several years ago, the trustees told us that we were to set up a capital fund made up, let's see, think, okay, capital fund, which is the income from our endowment funds that are specifically for building. So we have the Hale Fund, the Adams Fund, and the Windows Fund, and the Danico Fund. So those amounts of money were to be put into a new fund called the Capital Fund. And originally it started out at $5,000 a year to be put in that fund. And it's gone up $1,000 a year. And for FY 2003, it will be $9,000. So we use that money at council's discretion for projects that can be considered capital, that is over a certain amount of money, like $1,000 and lasting 5 years. We have a lot of capital improvement to do on this building. We have windowsills that are rotted as coming in the Dorothy door. The whole door there needs to be replaced. And that was going to be done last fall, but this, as you may know, when the school started, they were upstairs in the Dorothy because the SE space had huge water problem. So hopefully this spring, Bob Kelly can start on redoing that front door, the Dorothy. We have some roof leaks. We need pointing done on the outside of the building.
The brick pointing is
Brick
replacing the
pointing, yeah, brick
concrete.
pointing, so that we don't have any more huge water leaks. So every year, more money goes into the capital fund, leaving less for the general budget for minor maintenance issues. There is a plan to work on windowsills, the brick pointing, and other things for spending a certain amount of money every year for those projects. It's just now that the weather has turned and those things can be worked on, we should be seeing some work there. But we have about we have about $23,000 in that fund right now. We could easily spend, if we really got going on all the projects, we could easily spend all that money. But it's a great idea. That is not included in the operating budget. This is the operating budget. And that's the capital budget. Yeah. Thank you. You're welcome. Any other questions?
Thank you, Rosemary.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so there's our presented balanced budget. Dependent on that last little bit of pledge, for my review, it looks really strong. I think we really want to get some staff salaries, try to get that up every single year. It's just extremely important for people to do that. And we did get that last year. It was a year before. 2 years. Okay, so last year there wasn't a raise. Year before there was. And we're below geo-indexed recommended amount. So if where you work did a comparison against everyone else, we're about 10% below where they should be. So, and that's very dependent on fundraising and pledge to get us back up to that. So.
And the way the economy is, as all of us are aware, and inflation, I think it's really important that we do try to compensate our staff, our amazing, wonderful staff, by allowing them to have a raise, especially since it's been so long and we are so below the standards.
Yeah, we're overdue. Okay, and I think if people have any other further questions that they'd like to ask about the budget, you can write to Rosemary as the treasurer or write to Carrie as the council chair. All right. Oh, Drew.
I just want to say, don't let the little, kind of mix up and stuff like that that started, that, got us a little slow start for the hearing today. I just want to recognize council and the trustees and all the people who have been working really hard on paying attention to our finances, because there's an incredible amount of planning that has gone into creating these separate capital funds so that we can maintain our building, being very thoughtful about how, what fundraisers can actually bring in so we can be as exact and as true as we can to what we think is the reality of our ability to raise funds and things like that. So I just want to thank council and the budget finance group, who have put a ton of work into making sure that we are healthy as financially as an organization, just as we are spiritually. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
council. Council pays attention to $10. I mean, we've really paid really close. They pay close attention to everything. So thank you for all the work you put in.
And I just want to say thank you to Will. He really came through for us this morning, and putting the PowerPoint together, and then at the last minute coming and presenting it. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
They did the hard part with all the numbers. All right. Well, I think we're adjourned.
I think so. Thank you, everyone.